Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. I'm coming to you from my living room. So something happened, something momentous, historic happened the other day, and it was Tom Brady threw his 600th touchdown pass. And whatever you think of Tom Brady, it's still pretty, it's a record-shattering number. No one's ever done it. But what interested me more about the story is because I guess if you'd have told me he'd already thrown 600 touchdown passes, I wouldn't have disputed that because he's been playing for so long and he's been such a great player. But something that happened is the receiver who caught the ball just tossed the ball into the stands to a fan. But of course, this is a ball that was used in a play the likes of which have never occurred in the NFL. So it's like a piece of incredible football memorabilia. And the fan eventually gave the ball back to some people from the Buccaneers for transfer to Tom Brady. And he kind of made a deal to do it. And a lot of people were savaging the fan, saying that he got ripped off and he's kind of intimating he's an idiot for giving the ball back for such a small price. And here's an example of one of those pieces that I saw. Now, subsequent to that piece being written, he was given additional gifts, if you will, or additional compensation. The additional compensation that's probably the most noteworthy is Tom Brady, who is a spokesman for a Bitcoin company, gave him a Bitcoin that apparently has a value, market value of between like $60,000 and $65,000. Now, that's a fair amount of money. And of course, people were like, "Oh, well, he could have gotten, like $500,000 at auction for this ball." But that kind of skips over some principles in business, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. A lot of times people say, "Oh, well, you sold something for $10,000. I would have paid $12,000 for that." And when somebody says that, it always kind of irks me because the fact of the matter is they didn't pay $12,000 for it. They didn't come up with 12 grand. They're just talking. And it's pure speculation that somebody would be like, "Hey, this is the ball that Tom Brady threw his 600th touchdown pass with. And so it's going to be valued at $500,000. It's like the house I'm sitting in has a, quote, fair market value. But that's only what somebody in the real estate industry thinks somebody might pay for this house. There's no such thing as a comp in real estate that's not an actual sale price, right? It doesn't matter what the fair market value is, because the market is what the market is. Somebody might pay a lot of money for my house, or somebody might pay, $100,000 less than what I think it's worth or what I'd like to get out of it. And that's true if you're running any kind of business, right? And oftentimes I hear truckers talking about, don't haul cheap freight, which is kind of using the terminology wrong, because freight is actually the cost that someone pays for shipping cargo. But I get what they're saying. They're saying, "Oh, don't haul cheap freight," but then everybody has their own metric for that. Now, a lot of these guys are like, "Oh, I won't haul anything for less than $4 a mile." Well, on some loads, like I don't think I've ever made $4 a mile on a prime load. Maybe I have. Maybe I've come close on a load that was high priority, but it was going a short distance. Because sometimes, just taking something from Pennsylvania over to New Jersey or to Connecticut might pay $4 a mile. Like it might be 150 miles and they're paying, the line haul is $630 or whatever. But generally speaking, you know, at Prime, at least in the reefer division, we don't see those kind of numbers, except on those short hauls going into places that people say they don't like to haul into. Although I don't mind hauling into New England or New Jersey or whatever. But here's what needs to be the bottom line. And I think a lot of people out there, especially on YouTube, on social media, want to get you to think that you're being ripped off. You know, and here's the thing. The guy that got the ball from the receiver that caught it, he paid $0 for that ball. It didn't matter that somebody thinks the ball at some point in the future is going to be worth, you know, $500,000 or $1 million. You know, and it's the same thing when somebody says, oh, I had a load that was only paying $1.90, but I rejected it because I wanted to wait for a better paying load. Now let's say they get a better paying load, right? Let's say the next load is $2.20 a mile, but they had to wait 6 hours for it. And this is without taking into account, you know, the pay weeks. Like the week closes out on Wednesdays at noon Central. But let's say that I wait 6 hours to take that higher paying load, right? But that 6 hour wait means instead of going through, and let's say it's essentially the same route, but that 6 hours delay means that instead of going through Philadelphia on I-95 at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm now going through at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8:30 in the morning. I'm guessing that the latter trip is going to take longer, right? I'm going to use more fuel because there's going to be more stop and go traffic. There's going to be more brain damage. There's going to be more danger in moving through a big city with multi-lane interstates and construction when there's a lot of traffic than there is going to be when there's almost no traffic. And so am I really making more money? And I think the truth of the matter is that most of us, in fact, probably all of us, we don't really know. Because unless you have a fairly well built out spreadsheet and you plug all that data in, like the actual weight of the load, the route you have to take, the time you have to spend to get there, like the actual driving time. There are a million variables, and you know, oftentimes we're stepping over $1 to pick up a dime. And so what I encourage you to do is look at the big picture, right? Because if I say, oh, I'm going to get this load, you know, it has a 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. Delivery time in New Jersey. My strategy for going to places like New Jersey is get in, get out, right? Surgical strike. And I know that's probably most people's strategy, get in, get out. But I also know that the sooner you get in, like early in the morning, the easier it is to get out that same day with a load. Because then you can run up and down the turnpike and get out quickly. But that's just one example. The other thing that I see is, oh, here's B. What you doing, girl? B and I just hanging out. Yeah, Brittany's at school, Mom's at work. It's just me and B. Anyway, so I'd like you to think about that, right? And I'd also like you to think about the bargain for exchange. And the bargain for exchange is that principle. It's a legal principle that somebody is willing to part with something, whether it's a service or a good, for a certain price, and that somebody's willing to buy it. And to illustrate, let's say that I was selling you a hammer. I say that the price of the hammer is $10, right? But you only want to pay $9.50 for a hammer. So the truth is, though, that I may be willing to accept $9 for the hammer, right? I want $9 more than I want the hammer. But you want the hammer more than you want $9.50. So I say I want $10 for it. You say I'll give you $9 for it. And then my counter offer to your counter offer is $9.50. Okay? I get $9.50. You get a hammer. I wanted the $9.50 more than I wanted the hammer. But I didn't want $8.75 more than I wanted the hammer. Conversely, you wanted the hammer more than you wanted $9.50, but not more than you wanted $10. That's the bargain for exchange. So when you look at like shipping rates and prices, and I look at load boards too, just to see kind of what's out there, even though I don't work off load board. Keep in mind that excuse me, that you want to find a load that meets your needs. You're not trying to hit the lottery. You're trying to find a load that meets your needs. But knowing what it costs you to haul something, looking at time, looking at traffic, and all the other variables that you can think of, you might actually find that load for $1.90 a mile is a better deal than the load for $2.20 a mile. Now, here's a little twist. You're only gonna find out oftentimes about the load for $2.20 if you reject the load for $1.90. The problem with that is that you're not later gonna be able to go back and say, oh, well, why don't you just give me that load that was running at $1.90? Because that load's going to be gone. It's going to go to somebody else. And it's kind of like in the bargain for exchange, the way offer and acceptance works. If I say, this hammer's for sale for $10, okay? And you say, I'll give you $9.75 for that hammer. Okay? That's a rejection of the $10 offer that I made and a new offer at $9.75. And then I say, no, I'm rejecting that offer. And then you later come back to me, or somebody else comes back to me and says, I'll give you $9.50 for the hammer. And then I go back to you and say, well, I'll tell you what, I will take the $9.75 offer. But that offer is no longer on the table. That offer's been rejected. So you can't always go back and get the better deal, but either legally or just logistically, for lack of a better term. So you got to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. It's not just you're trying to make $2 a mile as your benchmark. It might be that you make $1.90 because then you're going to be set up to take a load that makes $2.50. That's longer. So your average per mile is going to be in excess of $2 a mile. But you might take that $2.20 load and find out that you're stuck in a place where the best you can do is $1.40 coming out at the same mileage. Well, do the math, right? I don't think you're going to average over $2 a mile with a $2.20 load and a $1.40 load of the same distance. So it's important to keep your eye on the big picture. And when you get something, just because somebody else says, oh, I would have done it for more money, or I would have done it for less money, or I would have held on to that football for $500,000. Maybe the answer is the guy's more than happy with what he got. He got his name in the newspaper. He got season tickets for the rest of this year, season tickets for next year. He got a bunch of swag, he got and he got a Bitcoin worth about 63 grand. I mean, given that he went to the stadium just to see a football game, that's a pretty big haul just for being the guy that was tossed a ball. And I'm not sure that when he was tossed the ball, he even knew the import of the ball. Plus, they gave him another game ball. So, I mean, just without knowing the pedigree of the ball, a ball is a ball, right? I think he got a great deal. And I think it's memorable, and he'll never forget it. And if he's smart, he could take that Bitcoin and turn it into $500,000 well before that that ball's sold. I mean, cash is king, right? You got to have a market for a ball like that, and there's a limited universe of people that are going to pay that much, and it's probably going to sit in the Hall of Fame for a while anyway. So, anyway, I just share that with you. Hope you're doing well. Just been hanging out, doing some chores, feeding chickens. Got some winter wiper blades for my truck I'm going to install. Yeah, just enjoying my time at home. Anyway, we'll talk to you soon. I might try to do a little historical stuff this weekend. Maybe a visit to a historical site in the Mid-Atlantic. I'll kind of keep that keep that a secret until I upload it. But anyway, take care. Be safe. Man, it's been crazy weather here in the Northeast. A lot of flash flooding, heavy winds. It's nice today, beautiful today, but still a little breezy. So everybody, just winter's here, man. Winter's here. I don't care what the calendar says. Just be careful out there. All right, take it easy, and we'll catch you next time on Tim Travels. Bye.